Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Talking TV with my mum, the Geek-Dom weekly TV review roundup show where we discuss various genre/geeky TV shows. And we are now into our double figures territory. Last week was episode 10, so we're now into 11. So we're on the road to 20 podcasts now, which is quite exciting. So thank you very much for joining us again. Today we're going to be talking about a few less things because quite a few things have ended. So we will be talking about Lucifer, followed by the finales of both Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow, and then finishing off with the second episode of the new season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I would like to just say to you all, please leave us a like, so click that thumbs up button because that's really good for us. And also leave comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these programs, maybe theories we've come up with if you've got theories of your own, that kind of thing. And also, if you've not subscribed to the channel already, then please hit that subscribe button and join this geekdom and help us to grow bigger so we can do bigger and better things. In my description box, you'll find links to my Twitter, so you can come and follow and chat to me on there. And also, there are links to my donation mediums, Patreon and Ko-fi. So if you want to help support the podcast and the future of the channel and help me to do more, then just go ahead and do that. If you can't, you can't, but you know, it's been mentioned, it's there, let's move on. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my co-host. So hello Mum, how are you?
Hello, yeah, alright, not too bad. Got a bit flu today, so otherwise I'm alright.
Been a little bit under the weather. Well, hopefully I can perk you up a little bit because we had some feedback from last week's podcast.
Okay.
So first thing I want to point out is that it's done well with the views. I think it's on a par with the number of views for the week before's podcast. But yes, it's doing okay. If I just check the numbers quickly, I think at present, so obviously as usual, we're recording on a Friday, but you're listening to this on a Sunday. So based on Friday, today, we have 21 views on the podcast, so that's not too bad. And we've had some comments. I'll just quickly mention those. So we had, we've got one of my my Australian friends, who's a fellow YouTuber, Plastered Koala, has thoroughly been enjoying the podcast. And he said that it was really good. He enjoyed the podcast and the fact that Lucifer is his favourite show. So he listened to the podcast predominantly for our conversation about Lucifer, but he then went on to listen to the rest and actually said that as a result he was kind of interested now in the Arrowverse and things like that off the back of our conversation.
Oh, cool.
Which was quite cool and also quite funny because it's like, you know, it's all finished. But I mean, you know,
then go rewatch them. And think,
that
program's
go and watch them before the next. And me and him have had some chats since then about other stuff that we don't necessarily discuss on here. Things that we will discuss in the future. Like he mentioned, he likes things like Battlestar Galactica sci-fi stuff. So we talked about that a bit, and then I said, "Have you heard of or have you watched The Expanse?" And that led us to talking about that a little bit and me recommending him go and watch it. And I said, well, you've got between now and I think probably October time, I imagine, is when it's going to return to catch up on the story so far. If you like Battlestar Galactica and you like that sort of gritty science fiction sort of show, then you'll probably enjoy The Expanse. So that was a cool little discussion that came out off the back of the podcast and initially just talking about Lucifer.
Excellent.
And then we've also had Will, who goes by Double Jump Gaming. Again, another person that's been listening to the podcast. He's using it as a background on his Monday morning at work while he's having his morning coffee. So that's quite cool. So yeah, we've had a couple of things. Zoe also mentioned that she particularly enjoyed our discussion on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She liked the fact that I was able to reference some of the events of the latest Marvel film Endgame, but without doing it in too much of a spoilery way.
Any spoilers, yeah.
Yeah, she sort of said she felt that those, you know, the people that know the relevance would have understood what I was getting at, but equally, I didn't say anything too explicit that would ruin that film for anybody that hasn't watched it. So
yeah.
So yeah, so a little bit of feedback there. That's just a selection of some of the feedback that we received. So just keep sending us in your comments and and things like that, and discussions. Like I said, some of the comments led to a discussion that I then went on to have with Plastered Koala in regards to genre TV shows. So you can do the same thing, and we'd love to get that sort of feedback. So that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very good.
So yeah, so I think your little call to action at the end of the last podcast helped a little bit there.
It worked.
Yeah. So
Good.
hopefully that'll perk you up a little bit.
Yeah. All good. All good.
Right, okay, well, without further ado, let's get cracking. So we are going to start then with Lucifer, and this was episode 2, and it was called Somebody's Been Reading Dante's Inferno. So, yes.
Well, yeah, because it started with, because obviously we had this ending last week where this priest was saying, you know what you have to do or something.
Mm-hmm.
So this week, it started with her reading biblical stuff. She was remembering, like, the visions she'd seen of Lucifer, and apparently this priest does exorcists, and apparently she went there on the vacation, like you'd said last week.
Yeah.
Her mission is to send Lucifer back to hell.
Yeah, so
that's what the priest says.
So she was clearly, obviously, she was in Rome, and as you say, she was looking up all these different books, and whether they be like religious books or mythological books or anything like that in relation to Satan, in his various guises. And then this Father Kinley approached her, and as you say, he was part of. I can't remember. He did say, like, they had like a title, didn't they? There was like a name, but it's a division of the church who basically are exorcists. He said they've been aware of Lucifer being on Earth for some time now, and that they've been monitoring him, and originally they just thought maybe he was just somebody like a charlatan pretending to be the devil and things like that, but the more they've monitored him, the more they came to the realization of, no, this is actually the real Lucifer. And he then was obviously saying to her about the concerns about him being on Earth and what that means. And yeah, like you said, that they needed to get rid of him. It's like, he can't stay here. Whenever he's here, that leads to bad things. And that was also was it also in that same section where he pulled out, there was this big book, and it was almost like newspaper clippings and things like that.
Yeah, they had all the information about him.
Yeah, and it was things like it showed him stood in a picture where there was Hitler, and there was a report about like a big fire and various other disasters and events.
Also tragedies, yeah, and he was there at the events or something.
So it's like saying, that whenever he's about, these kind of things happen. And the implication could have been taken one of two ways, because I mean, he did say to Chloe that he understood about her sympathies and sympathy for the devil. But he sort of said that, whether it's him doing these things directly or whether it's just him being there that influences this evil, that the common factor is whenever Lucifer's on Earth and whenever Lucifer is present, these things sort of follow in his footsteps. So... Yeah. I'm confused, right? And this is not spoiling anything about us discussing the rest of the episode, because it never really came up again. But it's like, what do they have that is potent enough to somehow kill the devil and send him back to hell? Like, what is it? Where did they get it from? Because he never really explains it, does he? He just sort of gives her this little vial, and then says, if you give this to him, it will kill his, it will extinguish him from Earth, and it will send him back to where he belongs.
Yeah.
So it's like, where did they get this?
Yeah, how they made it, or what it is concocted of, yeah.
So all of my speculation, obviously you knew already, because as we discussed last week, you've watched all of them, but for me, watching them week to week, my speculation about various things was sort of solidified in this episode with showing that whole bit at the very beginning. And then we get to the present day with the backdrop murder mystery of this week's episode.
Yeah, so we had the forensic girl first. First it panned to her and her Bob the Turtle and Margaret the Chicken. Oh
yeah, the chicken that lives in the bathtub.
Yeah. Yeah, because it wasn't, I think Lucifer was in, she was telling Lucifer, I think, And all he was caring about, he's worried that there won't be another kiss with Chloe.
Yeah.
And he's not sure if she still likes him and all this stuff. And then they got a murder.
Yeah.
And it was the victim was at a reality show called The Cabin.
Yes, and
Ellie was
Ella
a
was very
massive fan.
excited.
They're like, I want to go to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I think it was when they were going to they were at the crime scene. Chloe was chatting to Lucifer about who he is and hell, etc. as well.
Yeah.
And obviously he was like a bit confused why she asked me all these questions. And he said he wanted to go on this date with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was supposed to be her opportunity to do whatever the priest said on this date.
Yeah.
So he was getting all excited about the date.
Mm-hmm.
And she was planning to kill him, basically, on the date.
Yeah, I mean,
getting pressure from the priest to do it.
Because obviously he'd been worried about their relationship going on the back burner because of everything that had happened. So then when she mentioned this date, he jumped at the chance and thought, this is great, everything's back on track. And like you said, she did that line of questioning where she was basically asking him, like, when you were ruling hell, like, all the torturing and stuff, did you enjoy it? And he really got taken aback by that, didn't he? And he was like, no, it was a job. It was like, that was my task. It's not something that I like to do. It's not something I chose to do. It's something that was forced upon me by my father. You know, I didn't do this because it's something I get a kick out of. And he was really sort of taken aback by that. What was interesting as well was the name of the episode came up there, because when she was saying all this stuff to him, he went, oh, somebody's been reading Dante's Inferno, which was quite funny.
Maybe that's why they called it that.
That's the name of the episode.
Well, because of all what he said, she decided she didn't want to do the date. And he was already, like, she could see he was like, excited about this date, and he got her dress and everything, didn't he?
Yes, because
he was just about to like announce I've got the present, and then she went, can't do the date, we'll have to make it another day.
Yeah, because you had the two scenes. You had the first scene where he was trying to pick out shirts, and Amendiel showed up, and he told him, look, I'm staying on Earth, I've decided I want to stay here. And he was like, okay, and he was like, so tell me, while you're here, which one? And it was like, Midnight Blue or something else, and he was like, they're the same shirt. He's like, they're the same thing. And then he's like, and then he went, oh, okay, the left one. He's like, oh, thank you, brother. And he's like, well, you know, and that's why he was making such an effort. And then, like you said, he bought this dress, and oh, that whole sequence with Ella was so funny though. When he showed her the dress, and now, because she stopped going to church after the events of last season, she was saying about how much extra time she has on her hands and the things she has to think about. And she was being quite rude, wasn't she? And she was like, and he was like, oh, Miss Lopez, do continue. I really like this new side of you and stuff like that. So funny.
Talking dirty.
And then obviously she came in and said she had to cancel because she's having second thoughts now about going through with this mission that the priest has set her. So then he was really crestfallen, and she's like, oh, it's okay, buddy, don't worry. And she sort of went to give him a hug, and he's like, no, it's okay. You don't need to do that sort of thing. So like, okay, we'll concentrate. Yes, we'll get the case out of the way first, and then once that's done, then we can move on. So then, because we had a bit of a role reversal too, because in the first part of them, when they first went to the camp, because we skipped over that a little bit, they went to the camp, and they were questioning various people, and Chloe's line of questioning was very aggressive. It was like because she's clearly got all this stuff on her mind about Lucifer and about the task at hand, she was basically wanting to wrap it up really quickly. So she was going in, there's this guy, oh, he's like the resident douchebag of this show, so he's clearly the killer, go straight for the jugular. And Lucifer's kind of going, well, hold on, what about the due process? Don't we have to question? And she's like, no, this is the guy, he's got all that matches the profile and stuff like that. Then you skip then to after the events of her postponing the date and stuff, and because Lucifer realising, okay, we've got to get the police work out of the way, then we can go on our date, he then takes that role, and he's like, let's try and get this done quickly, come on, answer the question, and things like that. So it was interesting that we had this sort of role reversal between the characters.
Yeah, because normally that's the way he does things, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, that was interesting. And also, there was... What was the other thing I was going to say? I had a thought in my head about that line of questioning and stuff. Oh, the theme. So the theme in this, people kept saying, like, the contestants, and it was reflective to do with Chloe and Lucifer as well, about, you know, everybody plays a role, You know, they're not who they appear. Just because they appear one thing on the
Yeah,
outside doesn't mean that's what they
that's right.
are, and things like that. And that very much was kind of the through line in relation to the bigger story, in relation to Lucifer, what Lucifer is, who Lucifer is. And also with her, about the fact she was keeping secrets from him. She was, you know, because he did say that. He said she seems a bit like something's on her mind, like she's keeping something. And she kept saying that she was fine and things like that. And that's interesting as well. I wonder, again, you know the outcome, but the longer term implications, because he's always said one thing about him is the devil doesn't lie.
Mm.
And if he then finds out, like, he hasn't lied to her about stuff, so to find she's been lying to him, how is he going to take that, you know? That was what I was thinking. That was going through my mind.
Mm.
So there we go. So there's that.
We also had Amenadale trying to hang out with Dan, but that wasn't working. And it's not fitting in. It's just trying too hard, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That was a little side note to that. So anyway, basically they found out the suspect was, and they blew up the cabin on the show, and Lucifer went in there, and it blew up, and he just walked out, and she's like, "Whoa!" He just walked out. Nothing wrong with him.
Yes. But that was because wasn't that after? That was after the date, though, wasn't it? Because the initial bit they went further into the case, and they were questioning more and more people, and then they got to view some tapes, and they got to see this one of the girls. It turned out that they were lesbians, and they were like, "Oh, okay, so there's a bit of a relationship going on there." Then Chloe and Lucifer met for dinner, and she was going to poison his food and stuff, and then she had second thoughts and she spilt it. They had that conversation about, because he got cut, and she said, "You're bleeding."
Yeah, she wanted to know why does he sometimes get hurt, and then he told her it's only when he's close to her, he's vulnerable.
And he said, "You're like my Achilles heel. You know, you being around is what makes me vulnerable." And so she was then like really wide-eyed about all of this revelation, to know for a fact that she is. And they were talking about how things have put them in each other's paths, and it's almost like a divine thing. So that was kind of interesting. And then she got the phone call from Ella to do with the killer.
Yeah.
And that's when they then went to the place, wasn't it? Isn't that the bit when they went back to the camp, and then the girl was going to torch the place?
No, because, well, the order I put it is that happened first, because then they presumed it was her, and then Ella found some more evidence, and it worked out it's something to do with the camera. So they went back to the camp, and it was the cameraman that did it, and he threw an axe at Lucifer.
Oh yeah. So why did I think that the fire bit came after, after the date?
No, it came first.
Because you had that really cool sequence. I mean, without, I don't want to shortchange that bit, because when the place went on fire, obviously Lucifer was in the building and he didn't know what was going on, and she was watching on the camera. She screamed, "No!" The place blew up, and then you had that awesome slow-mo scene of him walking out through the burning building and just sort of dusting off his jacket and stuff, and it was just such a cool moment. So that was really, really cool. So I don't know, for some reason I thought that was afterwards, but no. So there was that bit. Then they had the date. Then they got called back, and then you said, like you said, the cameraman, and he jumped in the way. When the cameraman threw the axe, he jumped in the way to shield Chloe.
Yeah.
And luckily, she shot the cameraman. He went down. She then checked on Lucifer, and he hadn't actually been hit, but the axe had gone through his coat and pinned him to one of the support posts.
Yeah.
And then she asked him about the vulnerability thing again, and she was like, "So if I took this axe and shoved it into your chest, it would kill you?" And he was like, "Yeah, it would." And she was like, "Right, okay." And then she sort of cut his chest, and he bled, and she was like, "I'm so sorry." And he's like, "It's okay, don't worry about it," and things like that. And he's like, "I know that you could never hurt me." And I was like, "Oh."
We also had a little bit about, last week we had Linda and Maze doing all the keep fit and the fighting.
Yeah.
They had been doing it earlier on, and she had fainted.
Yeah.
And Maze had told her to go to the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a prognosis from that, and it turns out she's pregnant with Menadell's baby.
Yes.
Like, whoa!
That was a massive deal. And it was funny as well, because that bit when they were working out and Linda collapsed, when she came to and Maze was over and she's like, I'm going to try and help you. And she's like, do you have bleeding from the eyes? And she's like, what are you... And she's like, it's in this book. And she's like, this book is from, like, the 14th century. It's like, it's the only thing I could find. So, yeah, like you said...
so they're having is it a Nephilim?
Nephilim, yes. Half human, half
Yeah.
angel. So
Like,
that's interesting. And she told him that as well, didn't she? She told Amendiel that she was pregnant. So, because he was having a weird thing, because even though he decided to stay on Earth, he then also found himself feeling a bit pushed out from everybody. Because, like you said, Dan didn't want to hang
just
out
didn't fit in with
him.
anyone anymore. It's sort of like he'd gone away, and it's as if they'd moved on without him.
Yeah, because Dan doesn't want to hang out. Lucifer's preoccupied. The girls are too busy being friends and not wanting to have him involved. So he was like wandering the streets, chatting to homeless people, things like this, trying to sort of figure out his place.
Yeah.
And now obviously he's got it because she's having a baby. So
So near the end of that, Chloe went to the priest and told him she wasn't going to help him. So the priest wasn't angry about it, so he went to see Lucifer.
Well, before he did, very important, going back to what we talked about before. So she spoke to Father Kinley and she explained, I can't do this. I tried, but, I don't know whether he is really what you believe he is. And have you ever met him? Do you know him personally? And he's like, I'm sure he's charming. I'm sure he's a lovely individual. But that's what he does. And she said, but he never lies. The thing he's always told me is that all the things he does, the devil never lies. And he's like, or maybe that's the biggest lie of all. It's like, maybe he's tricked you into thinking this, because the biggest lie is that he does always lie. And that in itself is a lie. The devil never lies is a lie. So she's like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. So she leaves. And then he's like, And then, like you said, we see Lucifer, he's playing the piano or whatever, and then he thinks that it's her, and he turns round, and then the priest stood there. And he's like, oh, hello, who are you? And he's like, my name's Father Kinley. And then he's like, I need to speak to you, because I know, he like, did he call him Lucifer Morningstar or something?
Yeah.
And then he said, something I need to bring to your attention, there may be a problem regarding Chloe Decker or something like that.
Yeah. It's like putting doubt in his head now. It's like, that's how that episode ended, didn't it?
Yeah, it ended like that.
It's like, oh!
I watched this, guys, obviously, again, but like me saying this, and to anyone only watching it week to week, what is this guy's plan? Because he's tried getting Chloe to get the devil, and it's not worked. So he's now going to Lucifer to basically, is he going to tell him, oh, she was going to kill you? And then it's like, what's the end game there? What's the hope in revealing that to Lucifer? Is he hoping that will just make him up sticks and leave? Or, I don't understand what his end game is here. And also, how have they been aware of him of all this time? Why do they need a civilian to do the job for them? Are they also aware of the fact that Maze is on Earth? Are they aware of the fact that Amendiel's on Earth? Are they aware of the fact that
that's the point.
Cain was here? Are they aware of the fact that God's wife was here? Are they aware of everything that's been going on? And why choose only now to act?
Yes.
So there's lots of questions that I have, and I'm hoping that they answer them all.
Yeah, but again, don't you think it's there just seem to be a better episodes?
Oh, it's so good.
Like there's so much more to it. But plot wise, obviously, like I say, we're getting these side stories for the other characters. Like we've got Linda, Maze, and the baby situation. So that's the storyline.
Yeah.
Dan's going through a bit of turmoil, so there'll be a storyline there. They've got a lot of different things happening with Ella.
Yeah.
As well. And then obviously the Lucifer and Chloe stuff. But like you said before, usually they're just like, they're just in the scenes. They're just sort of, they're involved in their storylines rather than their own storylines, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been good that they're fleshing it out a bit more for the other characters.
Yeah.
Which makes it more, more content in the program then.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, look forward to talking to you about next week's.
One of the things I really enjoyed about this episode as well is that it's always been a really good show. But a lot of the time, there was quite a long period where it was more of a police show than it was the supernatural side. And they were only drip feeding the supernatural stuff in here and there. and they'd maybe bench, like bookend, the episode, the season. So you'd have a bit of the sort of bigger celestial, heavenly, hellish storylines that would sort of start it off. Then it would sort of peter along maybe little bits in the background until it sort of flared up again towards the end of the season. In the 2 episodes I've seen, this season it seems the forefront of everything is more to do with the stuff
The
to
supernatural.
do with the supernatural, with Lucifer, the nature of Lucifer, with Chloe knowing the truth, with Amendiel, now obviously May's being a demon and having this sort of finding her place in the world, with this Nephilim baby on the way, things like that. It's like and then the whole involvement of the church and this group of exorcists and stuff. It's bringing, so although we had the murder mystery this week, it was secondary to everything else.
Yeah, that's why most of my content was about the rest of it, and there was a little minimalistic bit about the actual crime.
Yeah.
Because it was more about the rest of it than the crime scene today.
Absolutely.
That episode. Yeah.
So there we go. So that's Lucifer.
Mm.
Moving on. So we are going to get to the first of our finales for this week. So this was the episode of Supergirl entitled The Quest for Peace. So what did you think? Did you enjoy this week's episode?
Yes. Yeah, I did. Yeah, because at the beginning we saw exactly what happened previous to the attack by the Russians. Were they Russians?
Well, yeah.
Kasnians.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically we saw because obviously she was called away, wasn't she? When you said when she was watching
Alex and Kara.
Yeah, she knew she heard a bomb or something, didn't she?
Yeah.
An explosion. So she took off because he had done it without her or something.
That's right.
So that we were right about that. Then, but yeah, so we had Lex and his gauntlet, that thing he's created, which is quite scary, and him and the president. That was the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we get to see all the bits of like what he did, and it was really cool because he's flying around in his Lexo suit singing "My Way" while he was like blowing up missiles and things
I thought
like
that was nice.
Yeah,
I wrote that down as well.
So cool.
As he was doing, just killing everything, he's like, "I did it my way."
And then there was a couple sat on the beach, and the missile was headed towards them, and he just swooped in and grabbed it, and they looked like, "Oh wow." So yeah, it was this montage of him like blowing up the military installation in Kaznia, destroying all of the missiles and things like this, and just basically being a hero. And then that married up with him on the beach with her, and he said, "You served your purpose."
Yeah.
What
I thought he killed him, didn't he? He just
he knocked her out, didn't he?
Commissioner, yeah. And Lockwood has got demoted, and Lex has got his job.
Yeah.
And then tried to have him killed by an Eve bot.
Yeah, that's right. He then sent the collection of Eves out to dispatch of Lockwood, but that didn't go to plan. So he was then really mad, and then he's like, now I want to kill Lex Luthor. So you've got Supergirl out for him, you've got Agent Liberty is out for him, and everyone in between. So it's like, oh dear, that's not good. So Lex is public enemy number 1 in the eyes of a lot of people, but in the eyes of a lot of other people, he's now the hero of America.
Ridiculous. And then we found out what the aliens were doing. They were building something in a refinery or something. It was.
Yeah,
where they'd sent them. So they weren't going into deep space, or they went through this portal into another part of one of Lex's places.
Yeah, the place was called Shelley Island, which is surrounded by some kind of energy interference which dampens alien powers.
Yeah.
And he was having them work away at sort of mechanical engineering work, wasn't he?
Yeah. But it was something to do with something that was going to happen. Was it to do with a bomb or something?
Well, it basically, okay, we'll talk about that bit in its entirety rather than jumping backwards and forwards. So the other thing was he took Red Daughter to this place and he put her in like a pod thing.
Yeah.
And she was like, "But I believed in you. You were my Alex." And he's like, "I never cared for you." He's like, "You, at the end of the day, you're a Kryptonian and I hate Kryptonians." And he said, "You were a tool. You were a device that I used, and now you're going to be useful to me again." And he closed her in this pod. That's also obviously part of the same facility where they're all working. And they're using the aliens as batteries to power, a weapon, which he has used the satellite that got sent up a couple of episodes back. as almost like a big laser device. And he's going to use 50%, wasn't it? I think Eve said it was like 50% of the power he's going to use to shoot off at Argo, which is where Superman is.
Yeah.
Because
She
he's
wasn't
so
happy with that, was
obsessed.
she?
No. Because he's like, with this power, we could rule everything with this energy supply, and we could rule the globe, and you're going to waste 50% of it on a revenge mission because you're so obsessed with Superman. And he's like, don't question me. I'm in charge here. You're just a lackey, and all of this kind of stuff.
And because it was dampening their powers, Dreamer and that couldn't get the signal out because they couldn't use their powers.
No.
So they had to find a way to get somewhere that they could turn it off, didn't they, or something, so she could use her powers to get a message out.
Yeah, they had to turn off the generators so that she could project outside of the island in order to let them know what Lex was up to.
Yeah.
And then that bit
was funny, wasn't it?
It was cool because that was the point where Brainy was with Kara and Alex, wasn't it? And he'd given the information, the evidence and stuff that he had about Lex. And then he was talking away and he was on about where they were. And obviously he's still the bad Brainy at the moment, so he's all cold. And he's like, oh yes, Johns and Nyanal are currently on this island, blah, blah. And they're like, what? You're only mentioning this now? And he's like, it wasn't necessary to mention it before now, but according to my calculations, then it should all come to fruition right about now. And then Nia appeared in the room.
Hologram, yeah.
Yeah.
That was funny. Because they couldn't see her, could they?
No, they could see her, but I don't think they could hear her because they were like, she's there, but they don't know what she's saying, which is why Brainy told her to write on the mirror.
Yeah.
So that she could give them the location.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. She had to write it on the window, wasn't it?
Yeah, on the window. That's right. Yeah.
She had to make her breathe on it and then write it on the window. Yeah, so that was good. And also, just previous to that, Lena was invited to the White House, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And her mum was there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're all together now. We're where we should be and all this stuff.
And he had a little party, didn't he? A little get together. And he was like, oh, we're all here. Look at this. Who would have ever thought it? 3 Luthers in the White House in the Oval Office. He's like, oh, you're my family. I want you here for this moment. And they're all like, And then he went out of the room for a minute to speak to Eve. That was the point where she was questioning him about the satellite. And they're in the room, and the mum's like, it's okay, I've already poisoned his tea. I just need him to stop talking so he can drink it.
Yeah. But then he sussed him, didn't he?
Yeah.
He realised. Also, they, was it Kara? She wrote a load of stuff out, so, like storyline, and it was all over the paper, all the news. Everybody was rebelling against Lex.
Yeah, she used the, what is it they call it?
Journalism.
Freedom of the press. So they could put out a story about exposing the truth about Lex Luthor, that he's not really America's hero. And they got it out there everywhere in order to discredit him. That's
it, yeah. And all the people rebelling, they had all placards and angry and and then we had then Lockwood and Supergirl had a massive fight, didn't they?
Yeah, because they all headed off to Shelley Island, didn't they? Like everybody. So him and all of his Agents of Liberty and Kara and Alex and James and when they were there, obviously they met up with Nia and with John, and Brainy as well, and there was just a big battle between all the different forces. And what I found stupid, I was like, wait a second, but Lockwood wants to stop Lex too, so why is it not one of those the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenarios? It's like, why did he... Oh, I'll take down Supergirl, then I'll go after Lex. It's like, no, you should basically all be working together. But yeah, they had a big fight.
Because we had like Supergirl and Lockwood. Then John was trying to stop the launch.
Yeah.
Then it was Lex and Supergirl. And then Brainy transformed again, didn't he?
Yeah, because he was getting... Because what did they decide? They realised that in order to stop it, Jean and Dreamer had to use their powers combined to like overload the satellite or something. They'd use their like psychic energy and the dream energy and stuff to overload the satellite to prevent it from firing on Argo. And she was like, I don't know, and it was like causing her a lot of pain or something, and he was going, and then suddenly he started going all weird, and then he snapped back to being normal Brainy again, who is in love with Nia.
Yes.
And then he was like, "You can do this. I believe in you," and all of this stuff. And then afterwards, obviously, he told her he loved her, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, and then when they were having that fight on the beach, Lockwood and Alex got involved, wasn't it? And was it James as well?
Yes.
And they were trying to give him the shot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, and then that was quite exciting. All that like, has he got it? I thought at one point he got given it to James.
Well, they did. They both got with it, and then
But they both got it. They both got, yeah.
And James's eye got injured.
Oh, that's right. His eye got injured, didn't it? Yeah. So he'll have a patch now.
Mm-hmm.
Be a pirate now.
So, well, I thought when I saw him with the patch and stuff, I thought, okay, so he's a black guy with an eye patch, so he's basically going to be like Nick Fury. Because all he needs now is like a goatee beard, and then it will be like the DC version of Nick Fury. That was what went through my mind. But yeah, so he's got an eye patch.
When they were all evacuating the place that was going to blow,
yeah,
Supergirl was in the Russian Supergirl was in one of these things, wasn't she? She got out as well.
Yeah,
and she went to help Supergirl.
Yes, because at that point, that was when Lex obviously turned up, and him and Kara then fought, and they were flying around fighting and stuff, and they ended up in like a warehouse. And then that's when he revealed like the true powers of his suit, and he could have killed her, but then out of nowhere, Red Daughter appeared, and she went in front of Kara, and she took the shot, and she got like damaged by it, and she went down, and then she died. But then you had that weird thing, because she was effectively had been created from Supergirl in the first place. She
absorbed into the other Supergirl, didn't she?
And now Supergirl's got those new, like the extra powers with the purple lightning and stuff, because then her eyes were glowing purple.
Yeah.
So she was like powered up in order to then take on Lex.
And then Lex exploded, didn't he? Well, his suit did.
Yeah, she destroyed the suit. And that's right, because he was falling through the air, and she went to save him, and he said, "I don't want you to help me." It's like, it's like I'd rather die than be saved by, be indebted to a Kryptonian. So he fell to the ground, but obviously he had a get out of jail free card, didn't he? Because the suit shattered on the ground, but there was no sign of him.
No. Because there was a bit. So Lena gave him the shot of the thing, and then he then shot him or something.
Yeah, so he had somehow he teleported, and he arrived back in his office, and Lena was there. Lena turned up, and she's like, she knew that he was going to be there, or he was going to end up there or something, and she gave him the shot and removed the Harrenel from him, so that he was like human again. So he's got not got any powers, and then he's like, he was taunting her and sort of saying, "You've never had what it takes, you couldn't stop me," and then she shot him.
And then as he was like wincing with the pain, he started telling us the truth, and included about Kara.
Yes, because he said, "You're going to have nothing now." And she said, "I have my friends." And he said, "I wouldn't be too sure about that." And he pressed a button, and then all this stuff played, all these recordings of various things. So he's had cameras everywhere, or access to cameras everywhere. And it revealed
so when she changes into Supergirl, isn't it?
Yeah, so now Lena knows the truth, and she was really like, and he's like,
upset
even your best friend couldn't tell you the truth because you're a Luthor, and all of this kind of stuff. I was like, oh, whoa. So yeah, that was like, with his final dying breath, he had one last cruel twist of the knife. We also had the Lockwood got apprehended.
And the president.
And the president, and they were both arrested. And Lockwood's son is now almost like a civil rights campaigner for aliens, isn't he? And sort of saying about
he wants to unite aliens and humans.
Yeah, not like
Haley got promoted.
Yes, she's now the director of Alien Affairs, isn't she?
Yeah, and there was a public apology to Supergirl.
Yeah.
And the predictable thing, Alex and James' sister got together, which I predicted the other week when they were talking about the baby.
Well, you've got two lesbians on the show. Obviously, they've got to end up together.
Brainy and Nia went on a date.
Oh,
so cool.
They all went out together though, didn't they? Because it was that moment they were kissing.
They all had,
And then the other two walked past them, and they're like, "We haven't seen anything. We're not watching."
And then they went back. Then it panned back to the house where they're all hanging out together like they normally do, play cards and stuff like that. And Lena arrives. Lena arrived, and so I think it was Jean said, "Oh, we can now play catchphrase," or
Yeah.
something like that. Cara wanted to tell her the truth. She was saying to Alex, "I need to tell her," and Alex was going, "No, leave it for now. She's had enough on her plate." But
Tell her
obviously, she doesn't know
tomorrow.
that she knows. Yeah. Then they showed this bit with Eve and some old woman.
So Eve was sat at was it like a coach station or something?
Yeah.
And she was wearing a
Yeah.
disguise, and this woman shows up, and she's like, "Oh dear, that disguise isn't fooling anybody." And she's like, took her glasses off, and she's like, "I did everything you told me to." And then it was like, what? So all this time we thought Eve was working for Lex, but it turns out she was working for somebody else who had set her up to work with Lex. And this old woman says, "You know, you were put in that position because you were supposed to influence him. He was supposed to move the needle, and he was supposed to make some changes, but you failed." And then she said, "Where did you think you were going to go?" And then she said something about Leviathan.
Yeah.
And Leviathan is everywhere, and it showed all these people. Like there
Leviathan's everywhere, and Leviathan has come in.
Yeah, so it's like, who or what is Leviathan? And I mean, whether it sticks to the comics, I don't know. In the comics, Leviathan is it's like an agency. It's like a shadowy, almost like the Illuminati in a way, that they are the ones behind the scenes that...
I think they were in the Supernatural. That name rang a bell when I heard it. I went, "I've heard that somewhere before," and I'm sure it was in Supernatural.
But they're like an Illuminati type group, from what I can gather, that like is always there in the shadows, orchestrating various things that happen. And that's obviously what they were trying to do here. They were trying to orchestrate all of this chaos and everything through Lex Luthor, but with Luthor's fall, and everything going wrong, obviously that plan has been offset, but they've still got other plans in the works. So it's like, oh, that's rather interesting.
And then we had the space guy.
It's in the middle of a road somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and he opened this like portal thing, and it was another Green Martian, and it's Jean's brother.
Yeah.
Who was banished to the Phantom Zone. And if you remember stuff to do with the Superman, Supergirl world, obviously the Phantom Zone is the prison where they send all of the like worst of the worst.
Yeah.
So why is his brother, why was he imprisoned in the Phantom Zone?
And then we saw the spaceman in the office where Lex was dying. He did something to Lex. What did he do to him?
Well, didn't he say something like, you're required for what's to come or something? He said something, and then he sort of...
I was thinking if they killed him off, I thought, really? When she shot him, I thought, this can't be the end of him, surely.
Isn't that what I said to you? Yeah, that's what I said to
disappointed.
You. I said that to you last week, didn't I? I said, if all this build-up to Lex Luthor, making him really important to the show, having him in a handful of episodes, and then killing him in the final episode, I will be really annoyed. So I was annoyed up until that point, and then when the monster showed up, and I presume he sort of resurrected him. That's the assumption.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, so he's going to play a part in the Crisis storyline then.
Good setup for October.
It's like, oh, very interesting.
Very good. It was really good. Really enjoyed
And what's the deal with bringing Jean's brother into it as well? Why did the Monitor free him from the Phantom Zone and basically say, do you not have unfinished business with your brother? It's like, what's that all about?
Yes. What a good ending. It's like, yo.
It was very good, and
Because it looked like it was going to be, everybody's happy, and then also we knew Lena had the information, so that could have just been the sort of going into next season. But they had all the little end bit with the Eve thing, and then the Martian guy, and the the Monitor, and then Lex not being dead. It's like, oh, that was a great ending.
So many things.
Yeah. So good.
It was really, really good. Yeah, it was a very, very enjoyable finale.
Yes, because that just went from strength to strength. That series.
Yeah, definitely. It sure did. Right. Okay. So that's one finale. The second of our Arrowverse finales, which was also really, really good, was the...
Yes, considering you were disappointed with the start-up of that when it came back after its mid-season break.
Yes, I was, yeah. So this is Legends of Tomorrow, and the finale episode was called Hey World, which is quite a funny little play on words based on what happens in the episode. Yeah, I was disappointed when it first came back, and we had that after the break, and it had that Lucha Libre wrestling episode, and I was like, yeah, it was all right, but it wasn't great. And then the next episode was also a little bit meh. And then after that, since then, from that sort of second episode back onwards,
Yeah.
it's been back to its madcap, bonkers, thoroughly enjoyable hour of entertainment that it always has been. So they had a little bit of a wobble, but then it got back to business as usual very, very quickly, which I was happy about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
so we started off, there was a fairy flying around, there was ogres and Rory and Gary trying to be authoritative
Yeah.
to get them all organised, because they've got all the creatures now, haven't they, on the is it on the Wave Rider?
Yeah.
Then we saw Charlie. She was in a cell because they caught her last week, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because they want to use her because she's a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
And obviously Nora then also landed in hell.
Yeah.
And basically that's how it started at the beginning, wasn't it? So Ray or Neron, or what his name is, they wanted to turn her into the Senator Charlie, didn't they? So that when they had this big debate, because people were querying his app and what he was saying, they wanted him so that they could use her so she will turn into something to prove a point. So we had that. And she turned into a octopus.
Yeah, it was that one. Do you remember the episode earlier on in this season where they went to Japan, and it was like basically they were filming like a Godzilla type movie, and then the creature that came out, it was a giant octopus thing called Tegumo, and then that was when Mick's character from his book came to life. Do you remember that one? Do you remember the girl?
Yeah.
And they had the giant octopus, and the octopus had been created from the book, and that was interesting. The magic book that if you write in stuff comes into reality. That's interesting that came up, because this is how that creature came into being. The guy who was basically the creator of Godzilla, the first, because that's even in that episode. Do they not even say to him about the idea of a monster movie, and they say, why not try a giant lizard instead of an octopus? So they deal with this because he's been writing this story in this magical notebook, and that's how this giant octopus monster comes into being. So it was a nice little reference back to that earlier episode. By transforming her into that particular monster, it was like, hey, that's the giant octopus from that episode where they went to Japan in the 60s or the 50s or whatever it was.
Right.
So that was that.
But that didn't go well for him. Well, in the end, did it? Obviously, she was capturing all of the people because she was being bad, But the legends came to the rescue, didn't they? Saved her.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we had Nate, and Zari.
Yeah.
They're going on egg hunt.
Yeah.
And it was bring a dragon to school day. Yay!
Oh, I know. That was so cool. And they were looking.
That was so funny.
They were looking around to see if they could track her down, and then eventually they found this little circle of kids. And in the middle of the kids was young Zari and this really cute little dragon, and she was getting it to dance and stuff for everybody, which then somebody made a video of it, and obviously it went on the internet and things like that. But that was so funny, but then the dragon disappeared.
Well, yeah, because that teacher came out and pressed something, and then it disappeared, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it looks like somebody grabbed it and kidnapped it.
Mm.
It's like, oh no. But they didn't say a lot more about that after that till later on, did they?
Yeah, no.
I was waiting for a bit more of feedback on that.
No, because they just sort of were like, oh great, we lost it again, and they were just resigned to the fact that, oh, we can't do anything right, kind of attitude.
No. Yeah, she said everything I do goes wrong.
Yeah.
Bless her. So we had Constantine, but in hell, and he got Astra. Astra decided she'd help him because he's trying to find. Pardon?
Thanks to Nora, because Nora helped save him.
Oh, of course, yeah, because Nora had been fairy-fied in to find Constantine, which was quite funny. Because she said, "Oh, I can't use my magic," and then she said, "So find Constantine," and then she appeared, didn't she?
Yeah.
So she got that Astra to help them find the coin, wasn't it? Which is his soul, represents Ray's soul or something, a little coin, and he had to break into a vault.
That's right. Yeah, it turns out that in this in this reality, in this world, the way things work in hell is that people's souls, they get transformed into these coins, which then get banked by whoever owns the souls, so whichever demon or devil or whatever. And they have a place that's like a bank, it's called the Soul Exchange. And that's where everybody has a vault and their specific coins get put in those vaults.
This is very relevant in this programme, so that's why I brought it up, because
very relevant
later,
yes.
Very relevant.
So they're like, we need to go there, and Astra's got her own motivations, because she's like, well, you know, I don't want to see Neron in charge of hell and things like that. So yeah, well, I'll help you with this. You're not going to be able to get into the Soul Exchange without my help. So they head off. They head off to the Demon Bank, the demon version of Gringotts.
Gringotts.
Yeah, from Harry Potter. So,
okay, yeah.
Do you want to carry on talking about that particular bit?
Yeah, because she took a load of stuff, didn't she? That Astra.
Well, yeah. So they went there, and Nora basically transformed herself into Astra, and spoke to the person in the bank and basically explained why they were there. That she worked for Neron. That Neron wanted to secure his cachet of souls, and that this guy, it would do him, you know, he would be doing the service if she let him into the vault and stuff. She basically convinced him, and then when they went into the vault, she changed back into Nora, and then revealed Astra sort of appeared like she'd been made invisible or something. And then they looked round, and there were loads of coins, and all the coins had names on.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, because you were like, oh, there's Genghis Khan, and there's Caligula, and there's all these sort of famous, terrible people from history. So they're looking through all these coins, and then eventually they found Ray's.
Yeah, and then she goes, right, what do we do? And he said, no, you can't. It's not just as simple as that, love.
Yeah.
And like he says. So.
Yeah.
And she goes, what do we do now? What was it they had to do from there to get to... They had to find where he was kept then, didn't they?
Yeah, they had to cash in the soul.
Actual physical... They had to cash in the soul. They had to find out where his body, you know, in the hell place was being kept.
Yeah.
And they found him. And he was playing Jenga with his captor.
Yes, and his captor was Vandal Savage, the baddie from the first season of Legends of Tomorrow. Which was really funny. It was like an unexpected return cameo, because it's like, you know, when they had all this noise come in, he's like, prepare yourselves, loves. They do terrible things to a man's soul down here. And they're like, what are they going to see when they open the door? Because there's Grace screaming.
They heard all these
shouting.
noises, didn't they?
Yeah. And they open the door, and it's because they're playing Jenga. And it was like, oh, and then Vandal Savage is like, hey, how are you doing? How are the legends? And all this lot. And it's like, oh my God.
That was so amusing.
So that was quite
So when
funny.
they left, he goes, right, let's get on and play Jenga. He just went back to playing it. But also, what that was going on in hell, up above hell, they realised that Neron's plan was to create fear.
Yeah.
And it's how are they going to defeat fear?
And that was the thing with Tabitha's staff, wasn't it?
Yeah. So his plan was he was going to contact hell, and basically all hell will break loose. He was going to get everything out of hell. This is what the plan was.
Yeah.
So they said, how are we going to fight fear? And they decided, we're going to open Hey-World. Let everyone see that creatures aren't evil and people can get on with creatures. So basically, they're going to have a freak show.
Well, yeah. I mean, they saw how popular the thing with the baby dragon was. So they were like, well, what can defeat fear? You know, how do we have any hope of defeating fear itself? And they're like, well, with happiness, with stuff like that. So then they were like, yes, Hey-World. Hey-World is the answer. So we're going to get this theme park open, and we're going to show people that monsters aren't to be feared. And then they spoke to all the monsters, and there's that whole bit where Charlie was asking him, what can you do? And I like to sing. And the Minotaur was like, it plays the guitar. And
I know, it's so funny.
The little puka girl was like a dancer and all of this kind of stuff.
But then they realised it would take 3 years to do it.
Yeah.
And then that was when they said, oh, about the book.
Mick and the magic book.
How can you get the book? We can't get into the bureau. And then Mick disappeared with it. It's like, Mick saves the day.
Yep, so it's like, the magic book.
You're looking for this book? I want it back.
The magic book that we mentioned earlier on. Yeah, that came into play because it would allow him to draw the park, and as he did it, it would appear then and there. So he got all of his dad's schematics and plans and everything that the builders had drawn up and stuff, the designs. And he went there, but before he did, they had that bit with Zari where they talked about the timeline would be altered. So the reason that all the things happen in the future where she's from are as a result of all of these events. And she's like, well, if this happens and this happens, that means this thing won't happen, which then means my parents and my brother won't, like, my parents won't go into hiding, my brother won't die, and it means that I will never be in a position where I'll meet all of you lot. So, and then Sarah's like, we're not going to lose another legend, I refuse to. If you stay here on the ship, you're protected by the, like, temporal zone, so it means that no matter what changes are made to the timeline, it won't affect you. So they're like, so
she said the only way of doing it is if you had to stay on the ship in order for that not to happen. So they were all planning this thing, and then Constantine and Nora magicked onto the Wave Rider, and then she goes, where's Ray? And she just had Bitcoin. So Ray was Bitcoin. Yeah. Another little pun there. Yeah. And it's like, he said, I need, obviously, the real one's here, so I have to get his body, his spirit, you know. The only way we could save him is because they had to go back and use the coin to get the soul. Yes, because then they said, that's when they worked out that Ray himself can't appear in physical form until Neron leaves his body. So Ray's soul cannot go back into his body while Neron is inhabiting it. Yeah, and they told Constantine about their great idea, and he was going, this is what you're doing, this stupid plan and all this stuff. And then they had the Hey-World advert, which was hilarious, where they had Supergirl, Arrow and Flash. Yes, they used the Trinity of Heroes. That was brilliant. Sarah was Supergirl, Gary was the Flash, and Nate was the Green Arrow. I thought that was so funny. There is only one niggle about this. Right? So, yeah, for us watching at home, it's so funny because it's the Trinity of Heroes, you know, the main three. Yeah. Why was it such a big deal that Supergirl was there, though, to the people of this Earth? Because Kara's not from our Earth, she's from a different one. So, therefore, Supergirl isn't going to be that well known on this Earth. So, using her in the advert kind of didn't make sense because it's like, but she's not from this Earth, so therefore, yeah, they might know who the Flash and Arrow are, but they're maybe not going to be aware who Supergirl is. So that's true. It was a bit of a logic. It was a bit more like that bit was fan service for us at home, and also because then they make a little note later on. They explained about they'd reached out to the originals, and they'd all turned them down. They'd all basically said they couldn't come and help. No. So it was like, okay, well, we can't get them all to properly cameo in the episode, so we'll do something, you know. We'll do something as our little connection. We might not have been involved in the last crossover, but we can kind of have them in our episode without having them in our episode. Yeah, it was funny, so funny. It was really funny. So they started the show. Obviously, you saw Hey-World, and obviously people wandering around having ice creams and they basically built Disney World, didn't they? Like a theme park type thing. They basically built Disney World. Well, yeah, and then there was a big show happening in the big arena, and that's when Sarah and Nate, I think, were dressed as the legends. Yeah. So that was while that was happening. Did you notice who was watching? The monitor. So that guy the monitor turned up and he was tutting. Like, really? But then, when it got going, he was eating popcorn. That made me laugh, yeah, when it showed him again and he was eating popcorn. When they were all enjoying it, it was like, oh, okay, this isn't too bad. But that is all we saw of him, which I was thinking, because you said, is he going to appear in all the shows? So I thought, well, that's his appearance. Is there going to be anything else? So, basically, they had a real-life dragon appeared, which Tabitha created. And then that caused fear in the room. Because they were all enjoying the show, because they had all the creatures out, didn't they? Saying, what can you do? Let's get to know them. This is what the message was, basically. These creatures are creatures, but they're not scary creatures. Basically, what they did was, in keeping with them parodying Disney, because there were several Disney parodies, the fact that Hey-World was basically Disney World, they kept calling it the happiest place on the planet, which is similar to the Disney slogan, I think, which is the happiest place on earth or something like that. So they had a variation of the Disney slogan. And then they also had this big stage show, which again, Disney has these live shows with characters. Yeah, that's right, yeah. So they're there in their Legends costumes and they're like, hey there, White Canary, and all this kind of stuff. And then they're like, oh no, look, monsters are approaching.
And the monsters come in and they're like, wait, before we fight them, maybe we should ask them if they have anything to say. And it
Yeah.
was so corny. And then the monsters were
Yeah.
like, well, actually, and then the crowd all started booing and they're like, we're losing them. You know, if we don't get them on side, they are going to be afraid and they're not going to buy into all this. And then all this fear is going to power what Neron's trying to do. And then, yeah, like you said, then Tabitha and the dragons show up. And then it was so funny because you kept getting shots of like people in like these boys in the audience, and they were like, "This is lame. This isn't exciting." And then when the dragon showed up, they were like, "Whoa, this is awesome!"
This is cool.
And stuff like that.
But then she said she was she told the dragon to burn them all, because at first, big dragon lands on the stage. Everyone was like, even they weren't sort of like too worried at the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is good. Everyone's reacting well, and then burn them all. And then the little girl, young Zari, got on the stage, didn't she? She talked to the dragon.
She told the dragon to dance.
Yeah.
And it remembered from when it was little, so it started dancing, and then it ate Tabitha.
It ate Tabitha, and it became small again.
Yeah. So that bit from earlier on where the dragon disappeared, she must have nabbed it.
Yeah.
She must have nabbed it and then made it grow bigger, but it didn't forget young Zari. It didn't forget its bond with her, because obviously, I suppose in a lot of ways, Zari is like the dragon's mother, because she was the first face it saw when it hatched from its egg.
That's right.
So it'd be like, this is my mama sort of thing.
And because Neron had sent a message to Hell while this was happening, Hell started opening, a big portal started opening. Was it on the stage, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And they were going to all come, they were going to make... because again, it was a very President Trump thing, wasn't it? When Ray Neron made his speech and he sort of said, "We'll make Earth hell again," and stuff like that, like parodying the whole "Make America Great Again" Trump speech. So yeah, they were all like, "Yeah, we're going to take over Earth and we're going to make it hell on Earth and it's going to be fantastic." So all the things that Constantine had warned the Triumvirate about the previous week was all coming to pass, and obviously we saw Astra a few times watching all this and kind of going, what, where do I sit in all of this? What do I do here? The other thing well in all of that was we found out, this is important too, because we found out that there was a bargain had been struck to do with Ray. And
Ray said he'd let him take his body if he didn't hurt Nate.
Yes, because Nate.
And he said the only way of reversing it is for Nate to get hurt. And they would go, "No, we're not doing that. No one want to do it." So that was, and Constantine was like, but we never got any more about that until this thing that happened. So we had Neron trying to kill Constantine.
Yeah.
And killed him. But then he changed into Nate, didn't he? And Nate changed into Constantine.
Yeah, Constantine was Nate, and Nate was Constantine. Yeah, that's right.
And he said he agreed to do it. He said he wanted to do it. He wanted to save Ray.
Yeah. As a result, it meant that Neron was then ejected from Ray's body, and Ray's soul from the coin was able to go back into his body, and they were then able to close the portal to hell and get rid of that threat, and Ray came back to life. But then Nate was dead.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's not good. And then we got a really sweet little scene, because it turned out that Nate's dad, was sat on the rafters watching all of this.
Yeah, he was reunited with his dad. He was sat with his dad.
And he got that chance to have his chat with his dad and resolve things with him and tell him he loved him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what did he say? Something like, "We can't end things this way." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, all good things always have to end on a song."
Oh, that was so funny.
And then he started singing this song.
And then it transferred to Rory singing the song.
And then Rory was like, "Why did I do that?"
No, what happened first? He stopped singing, and they was looking at me, "Why are you looking at me like I've got something on my face?" And they goes, "Because you were singing." He said, "I wasn't singing."
Yeah.
And then they realised they all needed to sing. Oh, that was great. They were all singing, all dancing.
And they were getting all the people from the audience, weren't they? They were going, "Come on, everybody. If you want to help bring him back to life, then you've all got to join in. Everybody hold hands." And we all got to hold hands and sing around him. And they had a little reference to last season. They were like, "Really? We're going to do something like this again? Where, like, we're going to bring everybody together, like the power of positive." And that's what I love, though. What I love about the Legends is the show is so cheesy sometimes, and they know it. They know it's cheesy, and they lean into that on purpose.
Yes.
They kind of go, yeah, this is really cheesy, and that's exactly why we're doing it, and we know it's cheesy, so it's brilliant. It's so funny.
Yeah, so they were all singing, and then the dad said, "Oh well, son, I'll be seeing you," and he pushed him off the rafters because
Yeah,
he said something like, "You don't need. It's not your time to go yet."
yeah.
As he pushed him down, obviously he woke up.
Hmm.
But when he woke up, Zari, who'd come out off the ship when she'd seen that he'd died,
Yeah.
she'd disappeared, and no one even mentioned her, did they? They were going. It was just like nothing had happened, as if she'd never been there.
Well, there was a kind of a moment because when Nate got up and then he got hugged by this guy, and he
Yeah.
said initially he went, there was something else. There was someone, like for a second he was trying to
Yeah,
remember, like something's changed, and then he went,
because when he
hey buddy, and he
kissed
gave
him,
him a
didn't
hug,
she, or
didn't he?
something? She
Yeah.
kissed him. They were hugging, and the next thing, it was a man.
And then he was like, little bit more pelvis action than usual, bro, or something.
Hmm.
Said to him, and then
So
he
he
sort of,
sort of had that little at the back of his mind that something was different, but then they just carried on regardless, didn't they?
and then they were all like, yay, Barat's here, and or is it Barat or Varat? I can't remember. It's one or the other. But they're like, yeah, he's here, and he's like, where's Ray? And then Ray's like, buddy, and they're like, hey, and everybody's cheering and happy, and they're like, yay, we
Yeah,
did it, and look at us all together again. What? And then obviously Zari's brother, which is who this guy is. He's like,
yeah,
yeah, we did it again, guys, and they're like, yeah, we're such a great team, and it's like he's always been a part of the Legends.
yeah,
So because of them doing what they did, and that was obviously broadcast to the world, they taught the
yeah.
world tolerance. That tolerance then meant that the chain of events which would eventually lead to Zari's future never came to pass, hence the reason that she never joined the Legends.
Uh,
And that her
oh,
brother
sad.
never died.
No. So that they all went off happy, and then they showed Astra.
Yeah.
And she said, "I've come to cash in these souls." And she had the Genghis Khan and all those ones you were referring to earlier, all the evil
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
That is what, because when she was in that vault with Constantine, she had said, because I'd said earlier, she wanted to take a few for herself. She said, "You never know, they might come in handy sometime."
Yeah, that's right.
And she took, and we didn't see who she took, because she grabbed a few, and then she had loads of them, didn't she?
And what did she
So
say?
all
The
the
guy
evil people.
the guy was like, you sure you want to cash all these out now? And she was like, yeah. And she's like, everybody deserves a second act after all.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh. And from what I've heard since it ended, from what I've heard from the producers of the show, they've said that is going to play, I don't know if it's going to be all a part of the next season, but it's going to play a part in it, in that we're going to get historical villains, like
Yeah.
characters like Genghis Khan and Caligula and possibly, I don't know, maybe, I doubt they'll do Hitler actually, but like, you know, those kind of characters, these evil men of history, are going to
Yeah.
be like the villains, or the like in this one where each week there was a different magical creature to catch, and
Yeah.
there was an ongoing story. There'll be an ongoing story, but the each week adventure will be about them tracking down and trying to stop one of these evil people from history.
Mm. So will they be getting involved in the
Yeah,
big...
that's why the Monitor was there. The Monitor was watching them, probably to size them up and work out where they can fit in. But also, don't forget, he's probably given them a bit of a black mark right now, because what they did, they changed the timeline by their actions. Yeah. Yes, they did a good thing because they prevented hell from invading Earth, but as a result of the way they went about doing it, they have changed the future. They have meddled in time, and like this whole thing with Zari, you know, that's meddling in time. They brought somebody who died back from the dead. Someone that was on their team has now been rewritten into a completely different history. So he's probably a little bit, you know, sort of with them, you know, he's a bit like, these guys. But the fact he showed up in their episode, their finale, again, is a good signal that, yes, they will be a part of this big crossover storyline. So
Yeah, because he didn't appear in Flash, did he?
no, he didn't appear in Flash, but in Flash, obviously, they had the two bits where Thorne said to Flash, "I'll see you again during our next crisis," and then we had the bit at the end where and then we had the bit at the end where the newspaper changed.
Oh yeah, so that was our hint for that. Yeah. But the guy itself didn't appear, did he?
No.
No. So good. Yeah. So all in all, really good. I enjoyed that. It was
So
brilliant.
it was just exciting. The effects were great.
Funny.
The comedy was great. Like I said, they know that their show is silly and it's cheesy and corny, but they go, yep, and that's what this show's, and that's why you keep coming back to this show every week,
Yeah. Well, they still have a good storyline as well.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
but it's mainly quite upbeat, isn't it? Because we used to always say, "Oh, now let's get to something a bit more upbeat, but exciting at the same
Yeah.
time." And there's always so much action. You go, really? The episode's finished already?
Mm.
There's so much happened. And you go like, what? It's ended.
I'm wondering now as well how they deal with this new dynamic of having no Zari but having Zari's brother, and whether we're going to get to see Zari, in the future, like if they'll visit the future and they'll meet up with her or something. Because is she going to experience like something like Constantine did? Because when in that episode, when Constantine tried to change history to
Yeah.
prevent Desmond from going to hell and stuff,
Mm.
it like made him crack up. Because he was
Yeah.
getting like layered memories. He was sort of remembering stuff from the other version of reality before it got changed and stuff. So is that going to happen to either one of the legends, or is that going to happen to Zari? Of realizing that like this isn't how things are supposed to be, and the world around us is not what it should
As it should be.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So is that going to play a part in things too?
I've to wait to see.
But yeah, it was just so much fun, and I just really loved all
That
that
was
kind of.
hilarious.
It was just so many good little moments.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. I loved it. So yeah, roll on October. So roll on October when we have all these shows come back. Plus we have the fifth pillar to join this series. So we have the Batwoman show starts when they all come back as well. So that's going to be interesting to see how that fits in with all of our other shows. Because it has been confirmed that she is going to be part of the crossover too. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose they kind of got to have her in the crossover because she got introduced in the last crossover.
In Elseworlds, was it? Or it was
called? And the guy two of the guys that are sort of kind of involved in all of this are in Arkham Asylum, which is in Gotham City, which is where Batwoman is. So
yeah,
she's sort of got to be involved in it, really, from the perspective of what they set up in the last crossover.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all exciting. I can't wait. We may get a little teaser trailer in. I see again. I should have looked it up since last time actually, because I did this last time as well. But Comic-Con, when Comic-Con comes about during the summer, they will probably have a panel where they'll have a little trailer of like what's to come and stuff. So we'll get a little bit of a tease as to what to expect. But knowing what they're normally really good with their teaser trailers for these shows because they don't really give much away. They give you enough stuff to get you excited, but they don't show you any sort of major stuff that's going to spoil anything.
Yeah. Well, I won't watch it because I don't like any spoilers. I like to just go into it blind and go,
This is relevant to the podcast. I have to ask you, talking about trailers and teasers and everything, did you watch the Westworld Season 3 trailer yet?
Yes.
Wow. Isn't that interesting?
It is, yes.
It's like...
Yeah, I watched it the next day when you said about it.
No idea what it means at the moment.
No.
But
so when is that back?
Well, it said 2020, didn't it, at the end of the trailer?
Oh, yeah. We said it'd be next year, didn't we? But, yes, it looks totally different from... I don't know what to expect from it. Well, it really didn't give too much away, did it?
They're in the real world now, aren't they? So that's going to be interesting.
It really didn't give them much away at all.
No.
It's just enough to go, it's back.
Plus the fact that in this trailer, we were following a character that hasn't been in the show yet. So you got this new character being played by, what's his name? Aaron Paul, I think is the actor from Breaking Bad.
Okay.
So you got him, he's the narrator, and we're following his character. And then we saw Dolores at the very end of the trailer, and a few little flashes of Dolores throughout, like interspersed, but not properly. But it was mostly about this guy, and it's like, okay, so he's a new character that we're going to be following, but what about all our other characters? How are they?
We didn't see any other familiar faces, did you?
No.
No, they're still in it.
So
they have to be.
It's going to be exciting. So that's a preview, folks, because, come next year when Westworld's back, we'll be talking about that on the podcast. So
get watching it now. watching the back seasons.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't seen any already, go and watch it because it's awesome.
You've got a year. You've got nearly a year to do.
If you if you have seen it and haven't seen the trailer yet, go and watch the trailer, and then in a year's time, when the new season's back, we'll be discussing it then. So there you go. That's something for you to look forward to. But I couldn't go without mentioning it because
No.
it's a big deal, and it's, like I said, it is a show that we're going to be covering, just in the same way that we've offhandedly mentioned things like The Expanse and Legion and stuff. These are shows that
Preacher.
we will be, and Preacher, things we'll be talking about. Oh, other thing, so potentially, next time we record, we potentially will have Good Omens to discuss, because I think it's going to start on the 31st of May.
Oh. And the week later, Fear the Walking Dead.
Fear the Walking Dead, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a jam-packed one again, won't we?
So
we'll have we're going to have a few little ones, aren't we, for like a couple of double six episodes of the ones that are remaining until the following week, and then we'll have lots, won't we, again?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll have that. We'll have Good Omens, and we'll have Fear the Walking Dead to replace the 4 Arrowverse shows that we no longer have.
Yeah.
So that'll bulk things out a little bit more. Right. Yeah, anyway, that's enough. That's enough going off topic. Well, it's not off topic. It's on topic, and it's related to the podcast. But it was just some little bits I had to throw in there while they were on my mind. So we will now move on to our final episode discussion of the podcast, which is episode 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 6, which was called Window of Opportunity.
Yes. Ooh.
Wow.
Right. Well, that was a good start, because it started with them in the shop.
Yeah.
So we got the people that had come through the porthole last week, the Cyber Coulson guy and his friends. So he got the signature sunglasses.
Yeah.
Not quite the same, but they were sunglasses, which he always wears. And icy drink, those icy slush puppies they were drinking. That was so funny.
Gave the guy brain freeze.
And then I put, they must be futuristic then, because they were sort of looking at the shelf, shoving some stuff off the shelf. Oh, that looks all right. We'll have that.
Yeah.
So they were definitely, it wasn't something they were used to.
Well, it's like when they robbed when they went to the cashier before they left, and they were looking at, and they were like, paper money. They used paper, and it's like, well, I suppose it's easier to carry than coin. So they're like, okay, but they were really baffled by the fact that we use paper money. So they clearly, where they're from, they don't use paper money.
No, and they basically got all their stuff, and they were threatening to kill the guy. They had no intention of killing the guy, and he sort of like scared him and like, and took something else off the counter, didn't he? That bloke got all piled in the truck, and then it just disappeared again. And
before that, you had that really cool moment, which I think is going to be the picture that you're all looking at right now, which is where they left the shop because the guy had a shotgun behind the counter, and they disarmed him and took the shotgun, and they were like, oh, it's interesting, primitive weaponry. They're still using like ballistic weapons or something. So I was like, oh, they obviously use like laser pistols. But then you had that cool moment where they left the shop, and it was almost like this slow-mo sequence where they were walking down the street, the gang, and like he had the shotgun slung over his shoulder and things like that, and it looked really, really cool. And then, like you said, they got in the truck, and when they drove away, they made it turn invisible, and it just disappeared.
Yeah. We then went back to the lighthouse, and obviously May had been telling Mick about what had happened, basically, and he wasn't sure about this Coulson thing at all. She was going, I'm sure it was Coulson. It so looked like Coulson. Couldn't really see, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't really, I'm not sure about that. Then we went back to the truck, and what was that big guy inhaling?
Well, okay, so you saw them, they went back to the like, I don't know, what was it? Like a storage place, like with big crates and things, like a crate storage. I don't know what it was, like a yard, storage yard thing. No, where they were parked up.
Oh,
so
no,
they were in the truck.
Yeah, they went to like scrap
yard
place, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were in the truck, and they were the young guy. Because I mean, the thing is, I don't really know all the names of the characters, really. Not yet. The young guy comes through, and he said something to the girl, Snowflake, and then the big guy was sat with like a mask on, and he said, "Does he really have to do that in here? Inhale that stuff?" And then Sarge, not Coulson, turned
Yeah.
around and said he hasn't breathed in his home atmosphere for such a long time or something. And it's like, okay, so whatever concoction he's got there, it's the same as the atmosphere is on his world, like where he comes from. So that's what he had. It wasn't like, vaping or something. It was like...
I just wondered what it was. They got it from the shop, so I just wondered what it was he was inhaling.
No, they said it was
I couldn't see what it was.
They said it was like the atmosphere of his home, like his home planet or his home world.
Okay, so there was a bit of squabbling. There was a bit of squabbling on the wherever they were, because they were saying about. He says you got to make sure that the thing is working to make sure that they can't see the truck. And the young guy was going, well, that wasn't my job. That was
Tinkerer's
Tinkerer's job, the one that got caught in the wall. And there was a bit, he's like, just get it done. That's what, that's your job. I need it done. And then he said they needed something to power it or something, didn't they? So they said, oh, right then.
He said, we need PEGs.
I said, PEGs.
It's like, what are they?
And it's, well, we were supposed to get that. And then Coulson had a paper or magazine he took, I think he probably took from the shop.
Yeah.
There was an advert for a jewellers or something, and he showed it to the young chap. He says, there we go. That's where we go.
Picture of a watch, wasn't it? And I was like,
yeah.
At the time, when we were
I didn't understand what that meant.
No, I thought, what, they need clocks? That's what these PEGs are? They need watches or something? It's like, what? I don't understand that. The other thing was interesting was that, during the squabble, it's like dissension in the ranks, and it was almost like he was challenging Sarge's authority, and he sort of said about them coming through, and they sort of all come through together, and then it's like, if we'd done that, this might have gone wrong and stuff. And then he said about the big guy, I think, is his name Jacko? He said, I don't see why he didn't come through based on the size of him. About something, he made some comment about a rain of hammer falls or something. I can't remember what he said. And I was just like, what does that mean? It's like, is that relevant? Is that like his nickname, or is that because of something that he can do? Or something like that. I mean, I just felt the way they said it, it felt like it was relevant to something, but maybe something we don't really know what at the moment, So, there was that. And then, they decided that they needed to go to this jewellery shop in order to get whatever these PEGs are. Yeah.
So then we flashed over to where Fitz was, because obviously last week, Fitz injected himself and was talking weird. Basically, we realised that it was to make him look like he was an alien.
Yeah, he was on a spaceship.
And they were on an alien ship, and basically he was pretending to be an alien.
Yeah, and then he gave himself away.
They were trying to convince them that he was useful, but the woman said your eyes flashed or something, didn't she?
Yeah, no. What happened was he was working with these other engineers, and they were fixing this water tank, and then he said, there we go, that's your problem fixed. And then he went and had a look at this water tank, and then this thing came up against the side of the tank, and he jumped back and went, oh, like that. And the girl looked at him like, why did you react that way? And then she said about them they were Xandarian snails, which were a delicacy. And he was like, he said something, and he was struggling to find the word. And she sort of said, where did you say you were from again? And he's like, oh, from the north, the far, far, far north. And then he walked off, and then she's like, so you come from an irradiated wasteland? And it's like, oh no, Fitz, you've just given yourself away.
Yeah.
And that's when they followed him, and then she looked at him and she said, you've been using optic something or others to disguise your eyes. And she hit him, and then his eyes like turned back into normal, and then they're like, you're not one of us, you're a Terran, and all of this stuff. And it's like, oh no, and then they found Enoch in the wall.
He was hiding in the wall, wasn't he? I was wondering where he was.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no.
So then they took him to the boss, didn't they?
Yeah, they took him to this boss guy, and he said he thought it'd be useful. I'm not going to kill you because you seem to know what you're doing.
Well, no, he was going to kill him originally, but Fitz kept like bargaining with him and saying, look, we can do this. I've increased the efficiency. We'll work for free. We'll do all of these things. And then he was like,
but then didn't he?
All right,
I'll give you a chance. I'll keep you, but get rid of them. I think he gave him a job to do or something.
Yeah, he gave him. He said about the airlock. The airlock needed work, so he said if you can get that done in like before we arrive at our destination and things like that, then I'll consider not killing you. So
That's right.
they set to work, and then they did get it done really quickly. And then when they went to the controller guy and they told him, he was like, "You're really, really efficient." And he said, "What you said before about efficiency and about this lot not pulling their weight," he said, "You're right. Why do I need so many people?" He's like, "I don't need all these extra people, so I just need you two. So I can just get rid of the rest of them." And they're like, "No, don't, I'll train them.
He said,
I'll
when
train
we get
them."
to the planet, he said they're not getting off. They're getting off before we land or something.
Yeah. So Fitz was trying to save their lives by saying, "I'll train them, I'll make them efficient." And he's like, "No, I don't need you to do that. I just need you to keep doing what you do, and we're going to get rid of the rest of them." And he was planning on flushing them out of the airlock.
Yeah.
So I am really glad. One thing I'm really glad about this whole bit, I'm glad that it ended as quickly as it did, because my first thoughts watching through this, I was like, I don't like this. This is like a retread of what they did last series with them being on a ship and there being a guy that was in control of them, and this guy had all this power, and eventually they're going to rise up and they're going to take the power back from that guy, blah, blah, blah. So I was thinking, we've traded in one of these kind of characters for another one.
Yeah.
The script writers, I shouldn't have dealt with them, because they clearly obviously thought this is what people might think too. So they get the bit where they're going to flush him out the airlock. Fitz stands in the way with a wrench. "I can't let you do that." Because he'd previously had a conversation with Enoch saying, "I can't allow him to." And Enoch's like, "We can't get involved in this. We can't do anything." And he's like, "Look, and you're like, "Yeah, because Fitz is a hero." He's like, "I can't stand idly by and watch him do this." So he stood there. "You can't do this. I'm going to start." And he's like, "What are you going to do?" And he's like, "Oh," and he said, "Get in there." And so he got in the airlock, and he's like, "If I go too, then you'll have nobody." And he's like, "Well, I know it's a shame, but I can't have you trying to get one over on me. So I'm going to have to make an example, really." So he then went to open the airlock, and Enoch's there in the background. It's like, "Enoch, do something, Enoch. Don't just stand there."
Oh, that was so close.
And then it turned out they'd reconfigured the airlocks, because he pressed all the buttons, and then Enoch did something, and then suddenly him and the other baddies that were still loyal to him all went flying out the opposite direction.
Of the other airlock, the other side.
So
but he was holding on for dear life, and he go, "Quick, shut it!"
Yeah.
Enoch was like getting sucked. I was sitting there going, "No, don't let Enoch get sucked out." And then luckily he pressed it. And then all the people that had been a bit dissy with Fitz were like so relieved, weren't they?
Yeah. Now they've got.
They're in charge of the ship now.
Yeah. Well, I suppose they're indebted to Fitz as well now, because Fitz and Enoch is why they're still alive. So yeah, that was really, really good.
We'll go back to them in a minute, because we don't want to. So basically, we go back to Coulson's crew. So I'm thinking, what are they up to? They found out the DNA that they found on something at the scene, when everyone appeared, isn't alien, and it is really Coulson's DNA.
Well, they got the professor guy, didn't they? They said they managed to recover this from the scene, run some analysis, because they were trying to work out. They were like, this guy, this person looks like Coulson, and they're like, maybe it's an LMD, like we saw in previous seasons. Maybe it's it's a shapeshifter. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. So he was like, "Well, I'll run the DNA, see what I can find." And then he said, "You're not going to like what I found." And he said there were some other elements in there, some chemical changes, and some things I can't identify. But the baseline DNA is an exact match.
It wasn't alien or anything,
Coulson.
It was human DNA.
Yeah, and he said it's exact match for Coulson. It's like, what?
Like, oh, my nose.
And they still couldn't, but, May wouldn't buy. She was, like, refusing to believe that.
Accept it. I'd been with him for the last few days of his life, I know it's not him, and all this stuff. So it's like, I don't believe this. So in the meantime, we had the jewel heist. So they went in the shop, and they killed all the guards, didn't they?
That bit was cool, wasn't it? The way
that was brilliant.
They all separated, came in one at a time, and all sort of took up different posts around the shop. Yeah. And he was being very charming to the woman behind the counter. Yeah,
chatting to the woman behind the counter while they were getting in position. And then they said, "Right, we need to get in the vault." And they got in the vault, and they were going, "What's this? What's this?" And have you got any? And she's like looking, thinking, "There's millions of pounds worth of stuff here."
And they're like, "Really? You prize this junk?" this
And then he
stuff
goes,
is worth
have you
something.
got any crystals? Crystals, that's what they wanted, wasn't it? So
Yes,
it's the
and it
crystals,
turned
which was
out,
the EEGs or whatever it was.
which is, I got the definition actually up here. So it stands for piezoelectric gems.
Oh, right, okay.
Is what PEG stands for. So yeah, PEGs are basically crystals, which are probably sometimes seen as less worth anything, like quartz and things like that, in comparison to refined diamonds and things. And she's like, yeah, there's tons of them down there. And they're like, this is perfect.
Right.
Grab as many as you can.
And then, oh my God, the technology was so cool. Because we'd seen him in the lorry practicing something, didn't we? And he'd drawn a line, drawn a circle, and that was all we saw.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was so cool. So basically, when they did it, didn't they? And then it accessed the truck.
Yes, and it created like a doorway.
The big guy came in through the truck
Mm-hmm.
to help them get all the stuff out. Meanwhile, Maze and that had heard there was an alert that those guys had been seen at the jewelers. They had locked the vault, so there's no way you can open it. They like broke the lock or something on the outside, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they're on the other side of this thing, and Maze is thinking, what made? I don't know what made her do it.
What?
She decided to go wandering off, didn't she? She said, "I've got an idea."
No, hold on, stop. I'll answer that. So what happened was that when they scanned the vault, they found all the heat signatures, and they were like, but how many people went in? They said 4, and it's like, well, I'm getting 5 signatures. And then they could see something. They could pick up on this weird shape, and it's like, well, they've got an escape route. How have they got an escape route? So then they were like, well, where would it go? Where would that escape route lead to? And then she had a hunch. So she went back, because they'd gone to the shipping yard place, the junkyard, earlier on in the episode.
Oh, yeah,
and they hadn't found anything.
They had a call that something suspicious was going on there, or something had happened, and they couldn't find anything, any tracks. Oh, no, they found the tracks, but they couldn't see where it disappeared to. And she had a feeling, are they still there?
So it's like, if they're going to go anywhere,
disappeared.
If they're going to go anywhere, it's probably here. So she went back there, and then she was looking around, and she threw a handful of rocks in the air, and it like revealed the truck was there, didn't it?
Yeah, and was it when the big guy was in the truck, and suddenly the door opened, she was there, or he went in and she was there, or something. When he was bringing stuff through, she
knocked on the door.
Appeared in the truck. She was knocking on the door, and he opened it, and it was her.
And she just like went full on sort of Hong Kong fully mode.
Kicking ass on that big guy, wasn't she?
She's a badass, isn't she? She's such a badass. Yeah. And she's got no quit either. Even in the face of like the odds being against her, she still gets up and puts her dukes up, ready to fight. It's like, don't want to mess with that woman.
Yeah, so she was going all hammer and tong in there, and then she saw the girl was trying to get through, and she pushed the door bit up, didn't she? So she couldn't get into the truck. You know, the girl.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, the other end of the portal. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was having a go, and then did Coulson come in?
Yeah, because just previously to that, before May got in there, they were shipping stuff backwards and forwards. You had that funny moment where Coulson was trying to work out what the woman's name was, and he called her Dana, even though her name was Dana, because obviously they're not from this world. So he read her badge, and he was like, Dana, my friend here is going to kill you unless blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then they got some of the gems, and he was like, right, I'll take these for now. Keep bringing as much useful stuff through as you can. So he took some of the quartz, and he went off, and then you had the bit with obviously May in the truck beating them all up and everything like that. And then you saw Sarge outside with this big weapon thing.
Yeah.
Big gun thing. And he was pointing it at the sky. And then he heard all the commotion and he's like, oh, really? And so he put it down and he went into the truck to try and figure out, like, what's all the commotion sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then that was, so she was fighting all of them. She did various things, take them all down. And then he came in. And then she saw him, and she was like, Coulson? And he stopped and looked at her. And then one of the others, like, knocked her in through the portal, didn't they?
Yeah.
And she landed back in the vault.
Yeah, they grabbed the girl through, didn't they? And they pushed her back into the vault.
Yeah.
Pushed May into the vault, and then they shut the thing up again.
Mm-hmm.
And then, wasn't that the bit? And then they were driving along, and I thought it was so close. And then the guy said, Coulson. Well, what? She called you Coulson? And he goes, the name rings a bell.
Yes, because he was like, what's that word that she said to you? And then he was like, I'm not sure, but it rings a bell. And it's like, this is really intriguing now, because not only have we got the fact that the DNA is a match for Coulson's, but also he stopped in his tracks when she called him that, and that he seems to find some element of familiarity with that word.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is going on here? Very intriguing.
Back at the base, was it from the guy in the wall? They found a chip.
Yep.
And it was a hard drive, and they put it on the thing. Said, "You won't believe this," and it was showing them filming wherever they come from. Wherever they will come from, the place has been destroyed basically.
It was like a swarm of something, wasn't it?
Well, that's what's make, you know, when you said earlier on about the guy in the wall.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he got something, whatever was going on when they were trying to get away from that.
Yeah.
That's what happened. You know, whatever they referred to was to do with that. Something was pulling him back.
Yeah.
He was trying to get through it, but something stopped him.
Because it was like when they showed it, when they were like filming it, whatever it was swirling around, and it, like I said, it looked like a swarm of insects or a swarm of something.
Something, yeah.
That was like locusts or something. It was just like destroying. It was eating through everything. And they were like, "This world's done. We need to get out of here." Because you had that bit earlier on as well. Hey Bruce, you had the bit earlier on where they were talking about. The implication was that they were just passing through our Earth. This was not their final destination. So then you have to wonder, are they the people that bring this, whatever this thing is? Do they bring it with them, or are they running from it? Are they fugitives? Because they said, we need to get a straight path, and we need to keep going. So we need to get everything we need, and then we need to burn this place and get out of here. So it's like... Are they running? Are they on the run? Are they like fugitives? So that's again all these.
That was the nearest
things.
stop. It was like a safe haven for now. Yeah. Until they move on to wherever they're really going. Yeah, and then also, so we had that, and then we had Fitz again, and he decided he wanted to get all the crew that were on that ship safe to a safety. So because we turn up with them at this planet, they're all going to get arrested or blah blah blah. So he said, yeah, but we need to put you in cryogenic, whatever it was. Yeah. And he goes, no, it won't take long. We'll go there, we'll drop them there, and then we'll come back. And just as they moved direction, and Goo turned up.
Ships passing in the night, quite literally.
What? They just got there, and he just had gone off on a different tangent. I went, oh no! Just so near, but so close. Yeah, so far, however the saying is.
I mean, it was fractions of seconds, wasn't it?
I know. It was like, oh, I mean, that was such a good episode.
And then they showed them on the ship, and obviously they were not happy with Gemma.
No.
And she said, I know he's here, I can feel it. And she got her ring out, and she was like rubbing the ring, and she said, I know it. And it was like, oh. So the thing now, though, is I reckon, do you know how I reckon they're going to work out they were there?
How?
The bodies floating in space.
Oh, yeah, the ones that they ejected.
Yeah. If you think about it, because I was like, so they've just missed each other by mere seconds. So the ship that he's on is headed to this planet where apparently they're quite, almost like, what did he say? He said that they were the species that lives there. They're xenophobic or something, so they don't like outsiders and things.
No.
So it's going to be difficult when they get there, but that's their destination. I was like, well, how are they going to track them? Because they've gone all this way now. Daisy's not going to want to hang around there too long. If they can figure out a way to get out of there and get back to Earth, she will, because she's now pissed with Gemma for sending them there in the first place. So I thought, well, there's a clue there, because those bodies got flushed out of the airlock, and it was in that area. So all they need to do is...
And they got something on their space, so you still have some sort of idea of it. And so they said, well, we have to track that. Yep. They were obviously on that ship. And hopefully they'll track that. But it's to convincing the others to do it, isn't it now?
Yeah.
She's already overruled them before, so are they going to put her under house arrest so she can't, and say, no, Gemma, we're going back?
Yeah.
Or are they going to just say, yeah, okay, then we've come this far, we'll just try this area out like you suggested, and then if we don't find her, we'll go back.
Yeah.
So good, so exciting. What a comeback, this series.
I know, it's been
really
great
good
so
episodes.
far.
Just like, so much has happened in just 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what else happens, you know what I mean? Because that's always a great Always great program.
Yeah.
And obviously we didn't know what was going to happen, did we, after how it ended last year season?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my days, this is brilliant. So I'm well impressed.
Me too. It was great. So good. I'm so excited now as to what happens next. And I just want to know more about this, like Sarge and his crew and where they're from and what they are and how. I was going to say, do you want to hear my theory?
Yes.
Right. So they've established the DNA is the same as Coulson's.
Yes.
What if there's a really big twist going on here? So this is the 6th season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes.
Last season, the Coulson that we know died at the end.
Right.
What if the Coulson that we've been following for the last 5 seasons wasn't the real Coulson? What if the moment, so from when the thing that happened to him where he got killed in the first in the first Avengers movie, he got killed, and then he got brought back to life by Nick Fury's secret project in Tahiti, and they used alien technology to resurrect him and all of this stuff. What if they didn't like resurrect him as such? What if there was like a different thing happen there, and somehow Coulson ended up far away? Because there was another bit in that episode near the beginning where they were all talking, him and his crew, and they said about one day you'll have to tell us your story. So like they don't seem to know, the people that follow him don't seem to know his history or where he came from or anything like that. So his background to them is also shrouded in mystery. So it's like, well, what if he is actually Coulson? What if the Coulson that's been the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. all these years wasn't the real one, and this one is the real one? And maybe the reason he doesn't remember everything is, one, because he's been off this planet or out of this reality, if they're from a different dimension, for such a long time, and whatever happened to him while he was there, that's why he's got these weird things that are covering up his DNA, and why he maybe can't remember everything and stuff, because...
But also when things are familiar, he sort of stops.
Like there's something there in the back of his mind.
Back of his mind, it's like, that's familiar. I don't know why it is, but it is. It triggers something, doesn't it?
Can't quite access it.
Yeah, maybe. Next, like you say, we know he was supposed to have died before anyway, hadn't he?
Yeah.
So, like you say, was it him?
Wouldn't it be interesting if it turns out that's the case?
Yeah. But it's going to take a lot of convincing for her to think it's really him, though.
But that's the other interesting thing is
you can feel cheated as well, isn't she, if it is?
Well, yeah, because if it turns out that he's actually the real Coulson, and the person she had this relationship with wasn't, then he's not going to have the same... They're not going to have the same connection anyway.
No.
Because it'll be like, even if she does get round to going, well, you're Coulson, and you've come back to me, he's going to be like, but we don't have a relationship.
I don't know.
So it's going to be sad, because all those years that him and May built that relationship in our world, for this version, for this Sarge Coulson, he hasn't got all those years. He didn't have all those years of relationship building.
All that experience now.
So all that is going to mean nothing to him.
Yeah. Oh.
So that's a possibility. The other possibility is that obviously it is just something to do with doppelgangers, and from, him being a version of Coulson from another reality. So that would again make sense, because it would be like, well, if there are multiple realities and there's a version of you out there on infinite number of Earths that exist in the multiverse, of course they're all going to share the same DNA, because they are all you. So it could still be that as well, that it could be to do with the multiverse, but I don't know. It's like, it's interesting. Or maybe something happened. Maybe it is a multiverse Coulson, but during that process back in Tahiti, when they brought him back to life, somehow he connected with another version of himself, and this other version has got sort of vague memories of a life that he never lived.
Yeah.
Or something,
Oh, so intriguing.
Oh, there's so many things. We could just talk about that for hours. This is something I would love to know. People that watch S.H.I.E.L.D. and people that are listening to this part of the podcast, which I hope is everybody, what do you think about this? What are your theories?
Yeah, what's your thoughts on this Coulson thing?
Because I'd love to hear if there's
Yeah.
some things that we haven't even considered that people are like, well, it could be this thing, you know. So
Yeah, it'd be great if people could let us know.
I would love to hear some people comment on this part in particular.
Yes. Me
So,
too.
Yeah. Anyway, calm down now. Calm down. Got a week more till the next one. So that's everything done. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed this week's edition. And yeah, shorter I imagine than the last 2 weeks' podcasts have been. So I will say apologies for it being shorter, because it seems like even though the last 2 have been long, it hasn't deterred people from watching it.
Oh.
But hopefully it was enjoyable nonetheless.
Yes.
Right, okay, well, that will do for this week then. So, as I said at the top of the show, please leave us a like to let us know you enjoyed this. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Leave comments, because we want to hear what you think. Go into my description box and follow me on Twitter and continue the conversation there. And click on my links for Patreon and Ko-fi if you feel generous enough to oblige in any way to help us to do more for the channel. That's everything. Thanks a lot, Mum. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was good. I'm glad I did it. Obviously, I still feel full of cold, but I managed to get through it, so I'm glad we did stick to the schedule.
Yep, we got through it. And there was no problems, so that's all good.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
So that's going to do it from us then, guys. Only other thing I have to say is, you take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye, 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 bye.